Welcome to Colours of Perth, where we bring life stories together. My name is Yamuna and I am your host in this journey. Everyone knows about the Edith Cowan University, but does anyone knows how she looked like? We need to Google it. But today we can just go in front of ANZAC House and see the real life statue of Edith Cowan. Do you know who is behind this? So we have today Suzanne John, who helped us to know about how the Edith Cowan looked like. Let's welcome her in Colours of Perth today. Welcome to Colours of Perth.
Thank you for inviting me, Yamuna. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Were you basically from Perth?
I was born in Perth, but most of my working life has been in the, as we say, eastern states of Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney, and also internationally.
So what is your real profession?
I am what they would refer to as an investigative journalist. That means I do the devious, deceptive, secretly looking behind the scenes of a subject. I, in the main, worked in current affairs for the Australian Broadcasting Commission in television, but I also had a morning radio program. They were Australia-wide, and obviously sometimes I'd be sent internationally. The 7:30 report is possibly what most people would recognise me for. But I've also worked in commercial television and commercial radio. And I now am specifically freelance, picking and choosing documentaries or subjects such as Edith Cowan that I'm interested in.
So all the Edith Cowan thing, how did it came into your mind?
Well, it actually was when I was a child, because we lived in the suburb of Crawley, which is between the river and Kings Park. And we're fortunate enough to have horses, my sisters and I, in the backyard. So we'd ride our horses through Kings Park. And we had been told the story for years by my grandmother of Edith Cowan, how she was the first female parliamentarian.
Yeah.
She started the first Women's and Children's Hospital, King Edward Memorial Hospital. She made sure that the court had a children's court, which before they were having to be tried in an adult court. So many things did she do, including start the Welcome Soldiers Institute, because soldiers came back from the First World War with nowhere to really meet. That was on the grounds of it was a cottage on the grounds of where Council House now is, and was the forerunner to the West Australian RSL. So we would be told all of these things as we were riding our horses through Kings Park, because the first civic memorial to a female in Australia is the clock tower, which is at the entrance of Kings Park. What's so terrible is when they wanted to put a statue of Edith Cowan in the park, they were told, no, she's not of national importance.
When was that?
It was before 1934, because eventually in 1934, in the week of the anniversary of her death, they finally were able to put a statue outside Kings Park.
Okay, so we have one more statue outside King Park.
That's right, and that's been there since those years, 1934. But no statues of women were within the central business area, St George's Terrace. And one of the other things that Edith did was form a club for women before women had the vote, where women were fairly badly treated and had no say in politics, leadership, anything. So the club became the Karrakatta Club. People often go, why is it named after a cemetery? Because we've got the Karrakatta Cemetery. But the Karrakatta Club was before the cemetery. And so women would meet there, and she was the president of such. The Karrakatta Club is now in ANZAC House. ANZAC House, the home of the RSL. So she's involved with both.
So is that the reason that she's in front of ANZAC House?
It is indeed. And we're so proud that she should be there. And of course, there's lots of women now in the forces, where there weren't in her day.
Right.
Yes. So that's it. So from a child, I knew about Edith Cowan. she's the second female politician in the Commonwealth. Sorry, Lady Astor was in England, but of course, in the House of Lords, you don't have to be voted in; you just flop in. So we really think she's Edith was the first.
Yeah.
But you know, Yamuna, what's so amazing is I knew all of that, but in my work travelling, I realised there were just no statues of women. In fact, there's only 17% of the statues of Australia are of females.
Among the whole Australia or WA?
The whole of Australia.
Only 17%.
17%.
Right.
And I might add, around the world it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
too.
of course, yeah.
But we're thinking Australia.
Yes.
There are more animals statues than
True.
women. And in Melbourne, there are more horses because of the Melbourne Cup. And so I started to be grumpy about this. And when I would be giving interviews for various stories I was doing, I'd say, do you know? And so we started to think about Edith Cowan's statue in 2019. And thus I was talking, grab, to the other states. And they agreed. And by 2023, there were 4 statues of females in the eastern states, in Victoria.
So 4 statues of Edith Cowan?
No, of other women.
Other women, right.
The Dames outside Canberra, which is 2 politicians, Tagney and Edith Lyon. So Dorothy Tagney's West Australian and Edith Lyon was Tasmania. Then they did in the War Museum, Bullwinkle, who's the matron survivor, the only survivor of the terrible massacre of our Australian nurses fleeing from Singapore when their Red Cross ship was bombed, and the girls that didn't drown were murdered. She survived by pretending she was dead, and her actual dress, nurse's uniform, is in the War Museum in Canberra with the bullet holes through it. So that's Bullwinkle. She's in Canberra. Now, there were no females, none in the Parliament and none at the War Museum. So those have happened in the last couple of years. Another one is Del Puget, that was a unionist in Melbourne, Vida, and another is a cricketer, an Australian cricketer, Belinda Clark. She's in Sydney. So all of those gone up since it's just they didn't realise. People didn't realise because it's not something on everyone's mind. But as soon as they did, things started to happen.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we're staggering along here, waiting on Edith. But eventually she came to be in 2025.
So you started putting up in the 2019 and it came up at 2025.
Yes. There's so much to go through. You asked me about the sort of diligence of having to do it. First of all, the sculptors, Joan Walsh-Smith and Charlie Smith, are very well known with sculptors throughout the world, but specifically in Australia.
Are they from WA?
They originally were Irish.
Okay.
And they live in Gidgegannup. They live in, unfortunately, the fire zone of Gidgegannup, so that they've got to be very careful. And everybody knows about them, that if there's an injured animal, kangaroo, birds, they take them to them. So their property at Gidgegannup is a mass of native animals and birds, which is fabulous. They are well known for the Waiting Woman, which is, they won the right to do that. It's in Geraldton, and it represents those, and the beautiful memorial in Geraldton, for Australia's worst naval disaster, the sinking of the Sydney, Sydney 2. And they did that. They won that, where there were amazing stories on the Sydney, where the gunners went down with the ship still firing on the radar. And so people did presentations of what they would thought the statue should be. But what won it for the Smiths was this wonderful statue of the Waiting Woman. She's standing there in the old style outfit looking out to sea. And of course, that's it. The soldiers or the military person, the Navy, They may be missing, they may die, whatever, but there's all the families
Waiting
left
for
behind.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. So those are the people that were approached.
Okay.
And they were absolutely wonderful and so proud to complete Edith. But you have to go through lots of things. Now, the city owned the footpath.
Yeah.
She's got to go on the footpath.
Footpath, right.
She's outside ANZAC House, owned by the RSL. So there were all sorts of situations that one had to go through. We were fortunate to have the architect of ANZAC House, who I know you've interviewed before, Kim McCormack, and he knew how the
To
workings.
fit.
Yeah, so there he was representing the women's only club, Karrakatta.
But before Kim designed the ANZAC House, there wasn't a plan to put the statue of Edith Cowan,
No,
was it?
not at all.
It was after the ANZAC House was built.
Yep.
It would be more tough to put it later.
It would be, although I think we could have fought for the fact that the only female, and we presume it's a female on St George's Terrace, is a kangaroo because it's got a joey in the pouch. So I think it's a fairly good, as happened in the eastern states, where instantly they went, oh, how embarrassing, no females. And so started putting them up. And we were still struggling on, but eventually we were awarded and there she stands.
Did you choose the statue?
No, the artists, sculptors, Smiths, but they showed us. Well, they showed us, they felt that she was striding along, showing she's a forceful person. And the interesting situation too is over the road in Government House Gardens is a statue of another activist, the Aboriginal woman, Fanny Bulbuck, who preferred to be known as Bulbuck. Now, Bulbuck and Edith were introduced by another famous person, and they did meet. And Bulbuck used to hate the Government House because she said that her parents and grandparents were buried there when it had been an Indigenous camp. So she'd walk through there whacking into the fence with a stick and was very grumpy about it. And so she was an activist in the same time for her people as Edith was for women and children. So the sculptors who also completed Bulbuck felt Edith looking across the road at Bulbuck would be perfect. Plus, it meant her back was to Parliament House. Now, they were terrible to her, the members of Parliament, when she was elected. It is protocol for the maiden speech, everyone to be silent and quiet and honour the new member. But they abused her, they accused her, they were so terrible. And throughout her only one term in Parliament, that would happen all the time. They were so abusive. So the fact that she has her back to Parliament, which is up the road, and she faces Bulbuck, a fellow activist, is great. But the interesting thing is, when the big crane was lowering her into the position, she kept turning slightly, and they're going, no, let her be facing Bulbuck. But she turned back again.
Itself?
Just swinging on the crane. She'd swing back, and she's looking slightly at Bulbuck and at her spiritual home, ANZAC House and the Karrakatta House, Karrakatta Club. I think it was meant to be.
Yeah. It's something we cannot decide. So did you have any issues when you put out the statue?
Well, I was very nervous. Jumping back, we had to be sure that there were no council situations that would be affected. So there could have been power, water, all sorts of things under the footpath, which they weren't able to tell us. Therefore, we had to do a dig. I was actually at home working on my computer, and Kim was overseeing when the guys doing the job, Colgans, who always work for the Smith sculptors, found there was a mark on the footpath that hadn't been there before, but that denoted that there would be items underneath. We were positive it hadn't been there before. So with my mind that always thinks the worst, I'm like, somebody doesn't want her there.
Oh.
What has happened? So I was told that they couldn't go ahead because there'd be
Because of
something
the mark.
underneath. And I thought, all of this, we're getting all ready to go.
Yeah.
This cannot be stopped. So they said, if we dig, then it will cost a certain amount of money, quite a bit.
Yes.
If we don't dig, you'll only pay the call-out fee. And I said, I haven't waited all of these years for us not to go ahead. So I said, dig. And I went in. And there's photographs of me peering down into the hole with these guys, and there wasn't anything under it. It was just some
random people
don't
want to.
That's right. And you see, you have that, of course. Some people might have thought, we don't want a woman there outside what was mainly a male domain, the military. But anyway, all was well. And so then later, when we dug again, she went in, even though looking at that. So she goes in the day before the dedication, and the governor, Chris Dawson, is going to do the dedication. And all of these special people are all coming. And I was worried. And I said to Kim McCormack, will anyone hurt her? You see all the time people chuck paint on statues. The kangaroo once had its leg sawed off, which then fell on the perpetrator's foot and broke it. So they found out who that was. But people do
all sorts
bad
of things. Yeah.
So I was really concerned. And so he rang the Colgans, who I'd employed, courtesy of the Smiths, and they said, look, she's covered, which she was, so they won't be worried about paint. She's so strong, I think it would be too hard to push her over. And so don't worry. And then they said, but there might be rude words which I don't have to enunciate, written in the concrete below her. Oh. I said, the governor's coming, get me a guard. So that was organised. At 12 o'clock at night, I get a phone call. Suzanne, there's something happening.
Oh.
I'm on my way, I said. I was in
at midnight.
Yep. I'm in my pyjamas, so I put on long boots. It was winter. I put on a coat and a hat, and in I went, and there was some sort of activity going on the road right beside her with a big dozer thing. Heaven knows why. I mean, road work is done in the small hours, so not to disrupt traffic. So I went in and said, could you stop, please, or be aware that this is a statue underneath these wrappings, and she's going to be dedicated by the governor tomorrow. So they went. So little things like that.
So do you know that who was that?
I do, which I will maintain my journalistic confidentiality.
No, I mean to say, was that something that really needs to do, or was that someone who don't want the statue to be there?
I would suggest your latter comment.
Whatever you want to do positively, there are always people who try to break it.
Yes, and I think that anyone that might have been anti her being there can only be pleased with her now. She is tourism, the tourists love her, but you're quite correct. People don't know who she is. Even Australians don't know.
No. What do you think that the life history of Edith Cowan plays the role in the future generation?
Well, she's a volunteer, and people don't seem to volunteer these days. You know, even the organisations that are do-gooders, Rotaries, Lions, St Vincent, you know, you just don't seem to get young people being involved.
Yes.
And so it's all the old codgers that are being the do-gooders. And I just think Edith Cowan, before her time, women didn't have the vote. She was also quite old to get into Parliament. But there she was, giving of her time. She had a family, but she would give of her time and volunteer to do things to help others. I think that is a major example to our busy lives of today.
Yes.
Perhaps just some little thing to do to help somebody else, even if it's a kind word.
Yes.
You know, her motto was, I'm a tough nut to crack. And she used to wear a gumnut brooch on her lapel. And she had to be a tough nut because she was abused and accused. I mean, simple things like no toilets at Parliament House for a woman. You know.
We cannot even think about that.
I know. And you see, remember, one of the other major things is little girls didn't have an example of female statues. Little boys wouldn't think females were
Worth it.
important when they didn't see an example.
Yes.
So I think that for little girls and little boys to see now we have a woman and hopefully more is brilliant.
Do you think that statue like this, the lady statue, that will change our future, the way we see?
I do think that more statues of females would help, because otherwise it's that only men had anything to do with the development of Australia.
Talk in context of kids.
I'm going straight off subject here, but a perfect example was we had a movie called Brand New Day, which was totally Indigenous, dancing, singing, absolutely wonderful. And Indigenous kids saw that movie and thought, we could do that. Look, we're allowed to do that. And now you have so many Indigenous actors in Australia and beyond, and yet before there weren't. So now, if we had more female statues, little girls can think, I could do that.
I want to be like that.
That's right.
So what do you think about putting the history of the Edith Cowan in the textbooks?
It's amazing that there hasn't been more. But with respect, and people will go hiss boo at me saying this, of course, most of those books were written by men. And it's not that they missed them out, it's just they didn't think along those lines.
They didn't want to be.
And when they show the history, I know specifically of Western Australia, and there's these books that calculate who did what in the early years, going right through, you don't hear about a woman. And I was having a talk generally about statues to a group, in fact, the West Australian Historical Society. And one of the women there said that her grandfather was some sort of hero in a country area. I mean, he may have been a mayor or something, I'm not sure. And she said, I'm really so embarrassed because we go there, we love to see the statue, we clean the seagull poo, and sometimes people have painted his nails, we take that off. And she said, but we know that he was never home. He was in England most of the time, and our grandmother was the one that ran the farm, was the husbandry, as they call it, of the animals, did everything, and yet he is honoured. And it's the first time that I've thought, that's correct. That why shouldn't she be there? She should be. But she said, we'd never thought of it because only men were depicted.
With the success of Edith Cowan, was there any family support?
Yes, we asked the family if they would they be pleased. We had to ask lots of people.
Right.
We had to ask the government. We had to ask the council, the mayor. We had to ask the road people, the Edith Cowan University. Lots of people said, why shouldn't she be out there? Edith Cowan University were very sensible in knowing we needed her to be in a public place. The statue had to be in a public place. And there's a university named after her, that's wonderful. She's on the $50 note, that's wonderful. But she needs to be where the general public can see her. And what better place than outside her spiritual home?
Do you think that people know that's a picture of Edith Cowan's on the $50 note?
No, people don't know. And that's why we will be putting on the windows of ANZAC House a few brief statements about what she has been known for. Because people see the statue, they read just a little bit below it, and then they still don't know all that she's done, because it's much more than just being first female in Parliament. She's done so much more.
If you look at this generation, whom do you reflect as strong as Edith Cowan?
Oh, God.
Is there anyone?
Well, you could probably say the only ones you hear of are politicians, and I could name three. Julia Gillard, first female Prime Minister, copped a lot of drama, and yet she persevered. Now that the Federal Minister for Defence, Linda Reynolds, who was for 35 years in the military, she has had a lot of difficult situations. And then we could even say Pauline Hanson. So those are three different political areas, but they get abused and accused for beyond their actual job.
And it's like from the generation and generation, let's go 18s, 90s, right? Always whenever there is someone as a lady, they try to represent themselves. Why people just accuse them, not try to support them?
It's most unfortunate, but also, as we're sort of slightly saying about politics, you'll find so often that everything's gone wrong, and that's about the only time a woman gets brought in to continue. And that can be in business too. Then they get it going again, and then whoosh, in comes another bloke. It's not being a bias here, it's fact that I'm saying to you. And of course, because I've had to report it so often.
If you had to put someone else's statue instead of Edith Cowan's, have you ever thought about that?
Look, there's so many absolutely brilliant women. We have in Western Australia a couple of, and they're medicos, Fiona Stanley, and there's the Fiona Stanley Hospital.
Yes.
Fiona Woods, person who developed a special repair for when there's burnt skins. I mean, those two people are brilliant in themselves, and they're well known in our state, but just like Edith Cowan wasn't known here, let alone Australia-wide, they wouldn't be necessarily known Australia-wide either.
So when you started to approach about the Edith Cowan statue, you didn't got the permission straight away, did you?
No, and the beauty of the fact of having something like the RSL and Karrakatta Club, the power, because you can't just say, I think I'd like a statue and whack a statue on a footpath. It had to be the power of those two. Now, the RSL, of course, is mainly male-dominated, even though we have lots of women in the military now.
No.
But we were very fortunate to have the CEO of the RSL at that stage, John McCourt, who agreed entirely and more or less said there would be no RSL WA if it wasn't for Edith Cowan. So she is a perfect example. So he was on side. That's huge, because we were concerned that the RSL could say, what, a woman out the front. Then of course, Edith Cowan University, naturally had to ask them.
Yeah.
They were fine. The Lord Mayor at the time, now leader of the opposition, Basil Zemplis, he wanted her in Yagan Square, that's right. He thought she should be better in Yagan Square. That's a busy place. So she's still central, but we always felt, no, St George's Terrace is the business centre of Perth, and ANZAC House and Karrakatta are both correct for her. He was right in the fact that Edith Cowan University now has a presentation in the city.
But the university wasn't there before.
No.
It was in Joondalup. It's just a new one
That's
that
right.
they built it.
That's right. But of course, he's working at that stage for the city, and he wants the best for the city. That's fine, lovely. No, she's got to be by ANZAC House and the Karrakatta Club, and he agrees.
Where does this Karrakatta word come from?
It was the area, because of course Karrakatta Club wasn't at the RSL. It's only recently been moved there. Mm-hmm. So it was the area, which means peaceful place. And thus, I suppose, why eventually the cemetery was called Karrakatta, because it's pretty peaceful there.
It's not the place where Edith Cowan was born or something.
No, she was born actually up in Geraldton, and on a property out of Geraldton. And very shortly, any time there's going to be a statue. It's already made, created and ready to be placed in Geraldton of Edith Cowan.
Yeah.
So it will be the second Edith Cowan statue anywhere.
After this one?
Yes. Well, anywhere, because it's the first one and only one is at the moment outside ANZAC House, and this one will be outside the courthouse in Geraldton. So she was born in Geraldton, and then she lived in Mount Street, just at the top of Kings Park, not far from where her memorial clock now is.
So when you start, you might have a team.
Yes.
So how many people were there? Who
Well,
were there?
first of all, we have several presidents of the club. The first one, Leslie Williams, was the president when we approached her.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? She was really...
Are you the first person to think about the statue?
I'm the first person to think about Edith Cowan's statue. Well, statues, I believe.
Yeah.
But then we were very fortunate in... So the Karrakatta Club were aware, but it was kept secret because it's no use getting excited about something if you're not going to get permission.
Yes.
So really only a few people in the Karrakatta Club knew at the beginning. Then a councillor, Sandy Angie, had also asked the City of Perth about a statue for a woman. She'd also seen that there were no women, or very few anywhere. And she would have liked a woman statue, and more likely opposite Council House was her thoughts. So she came to the Karrakatta Club, being a women's club, and said to them she felt there should be a woman statue in Perth. And the president was able to say to her, well, as a matter of fact, we are working on that at this moment. Then, of course, we needed Kim McCormack. So you had the president, and then the next president was Karen Anderson, Professor Karen Anderson. And so, remember, it took a long time. 2019, when we're just talking about it, constantly we would go and speak with the sculptors, which was Kim McCormack and myself. And then we were very fortunate to have Sandy say that they would be major donors, which was wonderful, and that helped. Before that, the Rotary clubs. Rotary Club paid for the statue, the Waiting Woman statue in Geraldton, and I had approached Rotary clubs to pay for it. But once the Angie family said that they would help, it was great. And then, of course, naturally I had to help by paying for the holes to be dug every time.
So is that your own expense?
Yes, it was my own expense. It wouldn't have gone ahead.
If you didn't say yes.
Well, it had to be then.
Yes.
Because they would have gone away and would have had to start all over again.
Again, true.
So I just said, and it's quite funny because I say to my children, of whom I have 4, who live in different states, and I said to them, your inheritance is a hole in St George's Terrace, which is going to be filled in again, which it was.
So have your kids came and see the statue?
They have. I was so proud that after the dedication, because there was very limited numbers that could go to the dedication, after the dedication, they all came over and we had a celebration at ANZAC House, a lunch, and then we have a photograph of us all together beside the statue, and they are very proud.
How did you feel when this project got completed?
Relieved. Relieved. At last it's done, because it took a lot of attention from my real work and the book that I was writing at the time, which is with the publishers now. They were getting quite grumpy because I just wasn't making appointments.
Time for the book.
And I had to say to them, I've only been writing this for 2 years. All the people in it are dead, so they're not hanging about. It's a factual biography story. And I said, Edith also has gone to heaven, but that's taken 5 years. Let me finish that, and then I'll get back to the other.
So you are a writer as well?
Yes.
So what kind of books do you write?
Awful books, I'm afraid. When I say that, as the only female at the time on the 7:30 report for ABC, so we're talking a lot of years ago, I would always be given the sad stories as well: rape, domestic violence, child sexual assault. And thus I was approached to write a book on child sexual assault.
We always need someone like to protect the kids.
Exactly. It's called Help Me Please. It is interviews with victims who are so brave to come forward and tell me their most terrible stories because they relive them. And it's just awful. So they knew that they would be helping other people because so many people, especially older men and women, don't want to say. They may have tried to get help and were denied it. So those people and medicos are in there, and also legal people. And it is in sexual assault units, in hospitals, in schools. It's for people that unfortunately may need to know what to do and how to go about it. So that's that book. The current book isn't distressing like that, but it is set in the 1860s. And so although it's a general story, I kept thinking, I don't want this to be like how women are badly treated. But of course, it was just the nature. Not that they're badly treated, just not thought of. And they had no rights, no vote.
So as we know that people who does the story like you, right, public doesn't treat well. Have you ever experienced that?
I have a anonymous phone because of the nature of the nasty calls that I get.
It's scary, isn't it? Do you ever think of giving up?
No, I would never be coward. I mean, coward spelled, not coward, but coward being scared.
We really need someone like you in this society.
I'm a grumpy girl.
So if you want the future generation to know the Edith Cowan story, what should we do?
We'll publicise it even more, but I think what is wonderful is you taking the interest to do this. The fact that you have taken this interest, and I am so honoured to be here to talk to you about this woman, then this is the way people will learn.
I'm just trying a little bit, and I think I am not even 1% and people don't know much about me. But do you think that someone bigger personality should do something?
Well, the sad thing is that Dame Dorothy Tagney, who is actually depicted in relief on the Norfolk Hotel in Fremantle because her constituents were Fremantle, and she was the first in the Senate and a Labor Party member, and it's her statue that's now in Parliament House grounds. It was her birthday a couple of years ago. Not a comment, not a mention in the Canberra Parliament. If they're not going to talk about her, what hope? So we have to.
We have to do. Even it's a small initiation, we have to do it.
Yes.
Just with the hope that it will go around the community.
It's funny, you know, Mimuna, the two statues of the two dames walking together, one was a Liberal and one was Labor. And they're stepping out, the Liberal with the right foot and the Labor with the left foot, as in left of Parliament and right.
So is there anything I missed in this conversation that you would like to say?
No, just the fact that I'm so proud to be able to speak about Edith, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I think the thing to remember is she was a tough nut to crack.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.